Hello, I'm Connie Romans, and this is CareerTech Conversations. Today we're talking to Max McKnight, and Max is our Workforce and Economic Development Manager. Max, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We talked to Justin Seiler from your team in our last CareerTech conversation, and Justin's also part of the WED group, but he and I talked mostly about movies, and as much as I love movies, the film industry is just a very, very small part of what your group, Workforce and Economic Development, does. Can you kind of give me a 360 overview?
Sure. I manage a team of 4 people, including Justin Seiler that you just mentioned. I have 3 regional coordinators, 2 of which are housed in separate technology centers. One's housed out in Western Tech in Weatherford, and the other one's housed at Gordon Cooper Tech in Shawnee. And then we also have a regional coordinator that's housed in the Department of Commerce and helps the Department of Commerce with their recruitment efforts on bringing new industry into the state. We've also, in one of the earliest CareerTech conversations, another division that I oversee is the OK Apex. I think when you talked to them, it was probably still PTAC then. They've just gone through a name change. But
I think they just rearrange the letters every once in a while.
It's just a new acronym, right? So that's just kind of the overview of my staff.
Well, you kind of jumped ahead of what I was going to ask you, so I'll rethink that. You're housed at the state agency in Stillwater, but as you mentioned, you've got people in the tech centers out in the field. So can you tell me briefly, at least initially, what happens out in the tech centers as far as your group?
Our group works with all of the 29 tech centers have a WED division, Workforce and Economic Development. Some of them still call them Business and Industry Services, but that side of the technology centers work with the local business and industry in that technology centers district, essentially on their incumbent worker training programs. So they're working with manufacturers on different production issues, production training issues, maybe industrial maintenance, maybe forklift training, maybe just some basic safety things. They may be working with banks on, QuickBooks or, another company with Microsoft training, working with local businesses on professional and leadership development issues. So the schools all have that division that's working with those local businesses and industries. And my team then is out there in the field with the schools. We have several different kind of funding mechanisms that we can assist different projects and so forth. Also our internal computer system where we track enrollments and companies served and that type of thing. We do training and assist the field in getting their information input, be sure it's in there in the right fashion. We do some auditing and double checking on that. So my team are the ones out there in the field working with the schools on those different initiatives and different training.
I'm still a little cloudy on where it starts in the sequence of events. Say Ditch Witch needs training for their staff. Where do they go? Do they go to you? Do they go to the school representative?
It starts at the school. The schools are the ones that have those relationships in their area. And so Ditch Witch comes to Meridian Tech in this case, which is their local school. If they need a forklift training class, Meridian does those all day, every day. So, we're not going to hear about those kind of things. They're just going to take care of it, do their thing. If they need, if they're going through an expansion, something like that, adding jobs, doing a capital expenditure, expanding their plant, then we have some opportunities there for maybe they could participate in our training for industry program. We could bring some funding to bear there. That's when our coordinator would kind of enter the picture, work with the company and the school on what that training plan looks like. Again, how to enter it in our system, how to track enrollments, how to do the follow-up, those kind of things.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to listen to any of our state leaders and not hear the words workforce and economic development right now. How have the workforce needs changed over the last, say, 5 years? 10 years maybe, but I'm guessing less than that.
Prior to coming to the State Department of CareerTech, I had about 20 years of experience in community economic development. I worked in chambers of commerce, economic development councils, kind of those boots on the ground recruitments in communities, trying to get business and industry to grow or expand in the community or recruit new companies in. And it's been a concern for a long time. It seems to be a little more. COVID may have hurt it a little bit. People that may have been close enough to retirement did, and so they've not re-entered the workforce. So it does seem to be, it's on everybody's mind, and where are we going to find the people? So that just getting what we hear, what the schools hear, is we just need somebody that can show up every day on time. And that's great, but that's not the end of the story, right? I mean, they need to know how to do their job. You can't just take somebody off the street and say, go weld that.
Yeah, if they can't make a widget, it doesn't matter how many.
Right. So that's kind of where we step in, those opportunities, whether it's in the adult career development that Justin talked about a few weeks ago, where there's those kind of catalog classes that probably everybody that lives in a tech center district gets those catalogs from the school, and they can go on nights and for a time and learn to weld, or learn, there's some healthcare courses they can take. So there's that opportunity to get that training, but also, if you just walk in off the street at Ditch Witch, to use your example from earlier, okay, your work history is good, so-and-so knows you, they recommend you, we'll add you on. Now we need to get you trained. How can the local tech center help us train this individual? So that's where those local WED divisions come in to help with that training.
Max, what are some of the most common things that businesses are asking for training in? What areas?
One of the areas that a lot of our schools do a lot of training in is safety. And a lot of schools, they kind of call that the low-hanging fruit. So many manufacturers, they need, ladder safety or hand tool safety or, forklift training. Those are real common. We do a lot of the schools do a lot of leadership and professional development, help with succession planning. Also a lot of computer training. Microsoft is still one of those in-demand things. With all the updates and the different products that come along. PowerPoint or Excel, as long as it's been out, there's still a high demand for those kind of trainings. Now you have 29 tech centers. You said you have representation in all of them. So that's a lot of students. How many, what's your enrollment each year? Sure. Each year. And this, it gets a little fuzzy when you start counting, but we count them as enrollments, right? So a 1 hour ladder safety class is going to count the same as a 30-hour OSHA 30. But for FY22, we're just now wrapping up 23, so our numbers are almost a year old now. We had almost 210,000 enrollments in industry-specific training. And I use the term industry really to mean business. That could be the local manufacturing facility, that could be the bank, that could be, Joe's Garage, whatever. We call it industry-specific. And then, in the adult career development that we've talked about a little, that Justin Seiler kind of heads up, we had almost 50,000 enrollments there. And I mentioned the Training for Industry program that we have some funding we can help those new and or expanding businesses take advantage of and help offset some of their training costs. We had in FY22 almost 9,400 enrollments there. And those are unique, non-duplicated. So if you took an Excel class and a PowerPoint and a whatever, you would be one person.
Gotcha. How has the funding been impacted by, I mean, everything costs more these days and everybody has less money. How is your funding?
Fortunately, through COVID and everything, we've been fortunate that my group and my division have at least had our funding held level. We've still got in the different initiatives and sources that I have about $5.5 million in funding, and it's been level through that. I came to the agency in 2017. I think the year before that, we'd seen a reduction a little bit in some of those amounts, but since that time, we've been consistently at that $5.5 million funding level.
You mentioned COVID earlier, and I think COVID was an opportunity for a lot of people to say, life's too short to do what I'm doing. I'm going to go do something I enjoy. How often have you seen those stories coming through your program?
I think the schools probably see that a lot because, that's kind of where they're getting some of those ACD open enrollment type classes. Why don't I learn to weld? Cabinetry's always intrigued me, or nursing. I think there's been a renewed emphasis. There were some ARPA dollars that the schools got to help on some of the healthcare worker
ARPA,
America Rescue Plan Act. Sorry, I hope I got that right. I know it's Rescue Plan, but there was some funding there to help hire some additional instructors and whatnot to train healthcare workers. So we've been able to, I think, kind of stay on pace anyway with some of those roles.
And we talked off camera about the chamber and how we're partnered with them. Just give me a little rundown on how that relationship works.
Sure. We have, myself and our team have relationships really across the state. Just yesterday, I served on a panel. There's a little rural accelerator program that's working with small entrepreneurs in rural communities to kind of speed their speed to market. We've got this idea. How do we get it out to market? And there was a gentleman from Department of Commerce. Trying to think, a Small Business Development Center, a couple from Oklahoma State University. So, part of myself and my team's role is to have some of those, or not some, a lot of those type relationships with workforce development boards. Probably not so much in the local chambers. We kind of rely on those, the schools to have those. But when we're in those meetings locally, we're making those connections. Like I said, Department of Commerce, workforce development boards, small business development centers. We do have a lot of relationships there. In addition to, we kind of charge those regional coordinators with being the eyes, ears, and voice of the agency in the field. As we make changes to the guidelines, it's communicating those to the schools. If there's something that's a bigger issue, that's not just an issue to this local school, is this something that's system-wide we need to be addressing, they can bring that back to us and we can address that with senior leaders. Maybe we need to be looking at the film industry, right? I mean, that's kind of how those kind of things happen. We're hearing that kind of grassroots effort start. What do we need to do to carry it forward?
It's not likely to happen, but if money was no object, if your division had all the money they needed to do whatever they wanted to do, what are you not doing that you would like to get into?
One thing that we've had to do over the course of time, I don't know what the real number is, but kind of annually, my training for industry program budget is about $1.5 million, and I get it. That's a lot of money, but at one time in the past, we maybe had $5 or $6 million, we were able to buy some equipment for the schools to those local business and industries that are expanding. We could have that equipment on site that they could actually train on that in the technology center. We maintained ownership of it. We inventory it every year. So we've seen a little bit of, that'd be an opportunity if we had more money to get back into that business.
I'm guessing that much of that equipment is outdated by now.
You'd be surprised how much of it isn't actually, maybe. There's some of it that's still in use. The schools are also really good. Like I say, we maintain ownership of it. The schools, we've got a piece of equipment right now that, it may be being transported as we speak, that we're transferring from one school to another. They had kind of gotten their use out of it. Still a lot of usable equipment with it. It's a mobile trailer that kind of teaches some industrial maintenance type programs. And so there's another school that said, hey, if they're through with it, we'll take it. So, we've got a process, right? So
a little duct tape.
A lot of people had to sign off on it, but, we'll transfer that equipment. There were some, we've tried to kind of whittle it down a little bit. There were some computers on some school inventories that were 10 or 12 years old that, we've released to them. They've reached obsolescence, but a lot of those machine tools, there's some vehicles, some of those kind of things that don't really wear out ever. So
this is totally off topic, but my secretary was looking for a digital copy of a file today and realized that it was in WordPerfect, and there was no way to get that out of WordPerfect anymore. So yes,
that goes back 20 years, maybe. Right?
I don't want to talk about timelines or anything. We tried to pare down everything that your division is involved in before we sat down to talk, and we probably could talk for hours and hours. But is there maybe one more thing that we haven't touched on that you would like to touch on?
One thing I would like to kind of highlight as we get ready to close is we also have, close to $400,000 of volunteer firefighter money that our team kind of oversees, and that's distributed to the 27 schools that have volunteer fire departments in their district. Metro Tech and Moore Norman don't have any volunteer fire departments in their district, so they don't get any money. It's a 3-year average of their invoicing, how they use their money, so it fluctuates for them each year. But that's a big help to those, not all of them rural necessarily, but to those rural small volunteer fire departments, so they can get ongoing training on fighting wildfires, and they get into everything from vehicle rescue to grain elevator fires, and so it's just some really valuable training that they can get. We trained 260 different volunteer fire departments for FY22.
Wow, that's
so
huge.
I do like to think that money we have we're good stewards of, and we're getting the most out of. The schools are really good too. About February, March each year, I start hitting up the schools a little bit and saying, hey, if you're not going to use all your firefighter money, let me know. There are schools that could use a little more, so we're able to shuffle some of those funds around and try to make the best use out of the funds that we have.
And each year it seems like firefighters are in more and more demand with the wildfires. And
we've had some really big ones the last year or so, haven't we?
That's really great. You said 260 departments?
260 different volunteer fire departments.
Well, we are certainly grateful to CareerTech and the technology centers, so that's awesome. I appreciate you being here with me. If you don't have anything else, I think we'll just go ahead and wrap it up.
My pleasure to be here.
For more information about CareerTech's workforce and economic development or other CareerTech programs, follow us on social media. You can keep up with CareerTech conversations on Facebook and Twitter at CareerTech Convo. And you can find our audio podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again for CareerTech Conversations. For Oklahoma CareerTech, I'm Connie Romans.